It is 7 o'clock. We will call the regular village board meeting to order. If everyone would rise to say the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Marevka, Jones.
Here.
March. Parker.
Here.
Ham.
Here.
Bowden.
Here.
Approval or correction to the minutes of the July 9th, 2018 regular village board meeting. In your packets are the minutes from that meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, a motion to accept as presented.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by trustee Jones, seconded by trustee Parker.
Jones.
Yep.
Parker.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Accounts payable and payroll pay period ending 7/14/18 in the amount of $51,093.15. General fund, $54,570.38. Motor fuel tax fund, $11,917.71. Water and sewer fund, $44,265.16, giving a total of all funds of $110,753.25. Are there any questions on any of the bills? If not, a motion to pay the bills and the payroll.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by trustee Parker, seconded by trustee Ham.
Parker.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Public comment and/or questions on any non-agenda item.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barb Sim. I'm a village resident, but I'm here representing the Park District. We just want you to be aware of some things that are coming up in the park, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to be on our grounds recently. We've done a lot of improvements. Our building is completely different looking, so. This is our summer events. We do have a movie in the park coming up this Friday night. Prior to that, with the Piatone Rocks, we're going to have a rock painting party in the building. So there's flyers for everybody on that. And then the other thing is on August 19th, we're doing Dog Day afternoon in the park. It is we're gonna have some vendors and sponsorships in the park. And we're bringing in some of the rescue and adoption agencies to have pets. Our rules are pretty clear cut. If you bring your own pet, they have to be kept on a leash, obviously, they have to be pet friendly. And we're gonna have food items, there's gonna be some pet boutiques that will have shops there, pet groomers, the veterinary services. We're trying to bring in training for dog training and agility training, trying to have some demonstrations for that. We'll have somebody there to take photographs of your pet or you and your pet together. There's a craft that'll be available to make a pet chew toy. And Will County Canine Unit will be there to do a presentation as well. So we just want to make sure that the board is aware of it, that we've got that particular item going on. It's new to the park this year, so we're hoping that we get a really nice turnout. It happens to be the day after the chamber event of the music in the park, concert in the park, so hopefully it'll be a very busy weekend. But I've got these for everybody.
When is that? Dog Day in the Park?
August 19th. It's a
August
Sunday
19th.
afternoon. It's from noon until 3, so it's a short period of time. It's on West Street. It's that open area that we have. We'll have our vendors there. The park will have one of the pavilions. We'll have the photographer and the craft, another pavilion. All the vendors will circle that little campus. So
Cool.
we've had a good response to it, so I'm hoping we get a really good turnout for it. We'll see a lot of advertising for it. We're going to need some placards that will start going up in the store windows and such.
Good.
That's great. Thank you.
So these are for everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming to tell us. And I'll share that on the village Facebook page
If
too.
you want, I'll email you some of the PDFs if
Okay.
you want.
Actually, the JPEGs work better.
Okay,
I'll just take it, scan it. I'll just take it, scan it.
Whichever works
Yeah.
for you.
That's how I know how to do it,
Okay.
so. I'll stay within my knowledge world, which is limited.
Alice World.
Yeah, limited. All right, any other public comment and/or questions? Now we'll move on to reports of committees. Police chief's report, none tonight. Engineers report.
The street resurfacing project and the sidewalk replacement project both should be starting up this week at the various locations throughout town, so just be on the lookout for that.
On the resurfacing, are people gonna be able to park on the street, or is it no parking while they're working?
They'll have, still, at some points, there'll be no parking, if they're doing curb work right there, or when they're actually doing the, paving and service removal. So
Okay.
there'll be signage, they'll put up signs, and if a resident's affected with their driveway or anything like that, they notify the resident.
Okay. I just saw they dropped off signs this week, and there's a lot of signs.
Yeah,
Yeah, some out doing some marking today too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like a big project.
And as far as the IDOT jobs, we're still having issues with utility companies. Nicor relocated their gas main on Rathje Road like they told us they were going to, but now they say they can't hook it up until August 23rd, which doesn't do us any good, so I've been in contact with community relations person, and Steve's gonna try as well, to try to get that changed.
And what about 50? Comcast?
Comcast was supposed to finish it last week. I've tried to find out today if they did, so the others can finish up and then can start it, but to me, it doesn't look like they finished, because I still see some pedestals out there, so just trying my best to stay on and just at the mercy of the utility companies.
They're not being very cooperative this year.
Frankfurt's having the same issue with their IDOT job. It's all over. It's not just Peatone. I know it's two projects at the same time, but it's just, it happens everywhere, unfortunately.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
I have a question. On the street over on Crawford, they're putting in new curbs too.
One portion of Crawford has curb the whole way, one of the blocks, because the curb was real bad on one of those blocks, so there'll be new curbing there on the portion that you're probably thinking of that's bad, if you've noticed it.
But a lot of it will stay the way it is.
Some of it will stay the way it is, yeah, as far as our budget, we, did the curb that, where it was the worst. Yeah, there is one block that we all knew curbing there.
So with the delays, what's the timeline look like for Rathje Road?
It's hard to say, I know because we just don't know when they'll actually do it.
But assuming they do it August 23rd.
It's gonna, unless we had, perfect weather, it might be very challenging for them to get it complete this year at this point.
So does that mean we delay it till spring, or we go until we
I
can?
guess the PT Fair, the contractor would have to determine, with our recommendation, advice, they'd take, but what, they'd probably present, here's what we could do. Do you wanna, hold off, or do you wanna do this? I'm sure they'll present us with options,
Does the quality of the job go down as the weather gets worse?
and anytime you have a job, especially an IDOT job, there's limits on how late you can move up to with temperatures. So, they're not gonna be paving below a certain temperature no matter what. So if it did get too cold, for any job, they wouldn't be allowed to do it.
And once they start this project, the road will be closed, correct?
It depends what portion of the project, the big bulk of the project it will be. The main thing is the big culvert replacement, which is gonna close the road
I guess my point being, even
School.
though
High school.
for the school.
they haven't paved it or anything, say, at that point, will the road be usable for people to get to the high school and for cross-traffic to go through, or are we looking at long-term detour?
Once they start the job, assuming they do start in August, the road will be closed, and it'll be closed. Our goal was to have the road closed during the summer. Just didn't happen. When we met with the superintendent of the high school, he was obviously hoping for that, but he said, I understand, even before we had delays, that, how construction is, because we said, there's a chance, and we don't know. And he said, with all the other access points of the school, it's not the end of the world, they'll make it work. So he was very accommodating, because he knew there was chances could happen, and fortunately it did happen. So if they do start the job in August, September, October, the road will be closed for part of the high school. Just have to, he said he'll, let obviously the, students and parents know, and luckily there's other access points to the high school.
I'm thinking in terms too of truck traffic that would cut from Joliet Road over to Wilmington Road to catch 57 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that'll all be routed through town.
Well, the chief the chief came up, the chief early on wanted to put a sign out on, I believe it's Center and Joliet. So once the project starts, when the road is closed,
Can
there
we
should
do
be,
that, put a sign up there?
yeah, the contractor's gonna put a sign up there telling the trucks that the road's closed, so they'll know to turn on Center. So we were gonna do that either way.
And the culvert, is that on the north end of the project?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right, yeah, just south of Oak Street.
Okay. Bummer.
Yeah, I wish I had better news for you
Yeah.
every 2 weeks or.
Well, I'll make a phone call again tomorrow to NICOR, see if that does any good, but definitely do that. All right, thank you, Troy. Any committee reports? Okay, we will move on to we do have old business. Old business, item A, Chamber of Commerce request for village donation to cover the cost of advertising for October 13th, 2018 Business Expo. Discussion and approval of donation amount as tabled from the last village board meeting.
Thank you.
So basically, at the last meeting, it was brought up of the business expo that we're having at the high school. Again, this year, we haven't had one in, probably been 5 or 6 years now. We did it 2 or 3 years in the past. They were very successful, they had good participation. It just as it was going again and again, it kind of got repetitive. So the crowds went down a little bit, but we feel like there's been enough time, and we got enough new businesses and people in town to get the exposure out there for the people throughout the community on what's available, who has things to offer. And we also, as a chamber, feel this is a good community event, which is why we're coming to you guys as a village, looking for funds, basically, because we don't have a whole lot of working capital to work with. And those funds that we're looking for, I think that's what was brought up mainly at the last meeting specifically, was mainly to market the event to, it's basically the school district.
Yeah, it's gonna be all the local towns, anybody whose kids attend the Peatone School District.
Because we also be using the high school's facilities. The chamber members get free spaces, and I think if you're within the district, there's a small fee to get a booth, $10. But the business has to be headquartered within the district. And basically what the money will be used for is, we're gonna do a mailing to everyone, which comes out to somewhere around, I haven't added this up, but probably assuming somewhere around 50 cents a piece. To get people in the door, we're gonna run a $500 raffle as the grand prize.
It's actually gonna be 3 raffles. We're trying to do a $500 one, a $300 one, and a $100 one to get people out. And also part of businesses coming to do the expo, they actually have to have like a promotional piece for the participants that we expect to walk through. And so we're encouraging everybody to stop at each booth, and when they do that, they're gonna get a stamp, and those who complete every booth will be eligible for our raffle drawings. So that's how we're looking to draw people out, get them to actually stop at every booth and interact with the different businesses from Peatone.
One of the problems is that, we do our budget in April. And so we didn't have any knowledge of this, when we did our budget. So any money that we put towards this has to come out of the small amount of money that we budget for Fall Fest, Christmas in the Village, and the other events or stuff that the village does. Right now, the amount that's left in there is $750. Is what is left in the budget that we could contribute, towards this. If we would know, when we were doing budgeting, we could kind of budget more.
When we did this last time, George had money from,
Well, because
So,
George, because he
this
budgeted
promotion
it, because he
and-
budgeted it, you
Isn't
put it.
there like maybe some type of, like village fund that you guys have for promoting new businesses or bringing in new businesses that you could possibly pull
Well,
something
that's,
from there from?
that's actually, I mean, what we're talking about is that line item. You know, we didn't put a lot in it this year because we don't spend, you know, a tremendous amount of money on Fall Fest advertising or, you know, Christmas in the Village. But that's just what's left in that line right now. If we would have known this ahead of time, we could have, you know, possibly beefed that line up a little bit. But right now, you know, what we have available is $750.
Pretty
That's
disappointing.
all you can do, I mean, we're looking to promote businesses.
No, I understand that, and
I
I'm.
think that the village would wanna support our expo a little more, but, you know, 750 is all that the village can spare, well, I guess that, we'd appreciate whatever you can do, right?
I mean, that's, again, I mean, that's the information that I've been given.
My only rebuttal was if we've got money that could be shifted from another location. And I don't know exactly how village financing works.
If the board wants to direct, if the board wants to take that direction, that's up to the board. I'm just passing on the information that I looked into after the last meeting because I didn't know, I think Mike threw out a $3,500 number, you know, at the last meeting.
Right.
So this number is a little bit different than that too. But so the last meeting was the first that we had heard about this. You know, it's kind of like we had a discussion in the committee of the whole about the donation possibly of a piece of art. You know, and they're asking for money. Well, I mean, it's a week away, you know, and we can't necessarily guarantee funds that we haven't been able to plan for and budget for, you know,
But
down the
doesn't our
road.
village have any type of funding to encourage new businesses or to, you know, meet with new businesses when you're entertaining them? I mean, there's gotta be some kind of funding for that too, so.
Well, there is a line that
kind of-
there's a line that I'm talking about, and that's, I don't remember the exact name of the line, but that's what I'm talking about, is what's left in that line in the budget. You know, to me, the chamber is always, my idea is the chamber is always the one that should be, you know, kind of promoting, you know, for business too, as well as the village.
That's what we're trying to do.
And I understand that, and like I said, if we would have had a little warning, we could have budgeted more in this line. If the board wants to direct me to talk, you know, with the treasurer and try to move something, I mean, I will certainly do that. That's up to the board. I'm
I would
not-
like to do that as, if nothing more than a gesture of goodwill, but to see how much money are you after?
I mean, 2,500 would really help us out. It would help cover our mailing and maybe one of the raffles. And then we can, I'm sure, figure out a way to get the rest of the funds too. We have to come up with the, you know, promotional stuff for the event for people to come through. We were looking to maybe do some printed bags for them to be able to put their stuff in. We're gonna have the expense of printing the quote-unquote bingo cards for people to walk around with. We'd like to, you know, promote a couple people that have, you know, talked about possibly helping us out, so. And I think it would be really good to be able to promote as our village, you know, back to our business expo.
I would support looking for other sources, but I'm not interested in a raffle, sponsoring a raffle. But if there's a way we can,
The raffle's just the primary marketing piece to
Yeah.
get people in
Right.
the door. I understand what you're saying, oh, we're providing a raffle, it's more than that, it's to get them,
I
to
get
get
it.
the people in the
I mean,
door,
if-
that's the purpose of it. And that's the most effective route to go to get the people in the door versus spending $1 million on billboards and banners and all that
Right.
stuff. This is proven,
Hmm.
that it works. And, just to get the best turnout possible and the most exposure possible. For the
Anything
community
you
and-
could do to get us closer to $2,000 would be really helpful.
Can we talk to Marcy and see what we can squeeze?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was looking for the rest of the board's input here.
I guess I'd be okay with the 1942, but, you know, raffling doesn't seem appropriate for village funds.
So as far as the budget amount goes, is there a general fund that something could be taken out of that?
I don't know what our exact ability to move line to line. Usually you can't shift line to line as far as money goes.
Right, you can shift within funds, I don't know how you're exactly divided up,
Right.
but you can certainly talk to Marcy and see what can be done, and then, you know, typically you're bringing back a budget amendment at some point to account for these things that you've done, so.
So basically, we got, it said, well, there's 750 available, so we're looking for an additional 1250. We could be moved for a total of 2,000. Is that something you'd be able to explore?
Is that the direction of the board?
I'd support that.
Yeah, I think I would.
I have no objection.
Right, let me see what I can find out for you.
I think
Okay.
in the future. if
But yeah,
you're
I mean,
gonna
I
be
think, you know,
planning
we need to
another
plan.
one,
This came up in about
Absolutely.
maybe May.
Yep.
When do they need to know by, Steve? What is the,
Well, we start our budgeting process in January, yeah, for the next year.
Okay.
When we
It starts in
approve-
January, when is it finalized?
We approve our budget in April, yeah.
January.
I think we just got some fresh faces on the board, and we're just trying to get the chamber back out there and up and running in town, so we really appreciate your support.
so in the next year, if you get the chance to sit down and
Yes.
plan for the year?
Definitely.
Kind of roughen and
Absolutely.
it'd make it easier for everybody.
Absolutely.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I guess I need possibly a motion to direct that, and again, I'm not making any guarantees.
We appreciate it, and
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
So a motion by trustee Ham, seconded by trustee Parker, to explore the possibility of up to a $2,000 donation to the chamber for the Business Expo advertising.
Ham,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
and Jones.
Yes.
Okay, new business, item A, raffle license application, discussion approval, Manhattan American Legion Veterans fundraising activity at the Will County Fair, 8/22 through the 26th. This is a raffle application from the Manhattan American Legion. They're gonna be at the Will County Fair selling raffle tickets, I think for all of the days, and the cost of the raffle license is $50.
Motion.
Second? Motion by trustee Bowden, seconded by trustee Jones to approve the raffle license application for the Manhattan American Legion.
Bowden,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Item B, Mr. Ivanoff presentation regarding sculpture donation from Chris Ivanoff and approval for location approval of fee for foundation plaque and transportation of donated sculpture. And we actually had this conversation in committee of the whole, and at the end, just to give a synopsis, Chris Ivanoff, who is the brother of Tom Ivanoff, who used to live in Peatone, has offered to donate a sculpture to the village, asking for funds from the village for transportation, placement of the sculpture, and a plaque. The board, we cannot make any guarantees of available funds, again, for the same reason that we were just previously talking about, that we don't have any budgeted funds, but we will explore the possibility, and asking if Chris would be willing to transport the sculpture here. I think Tom had said that, he's also looking at cooperating with some other people to reduce costs.
And the cost that we're estimating it to be, and probably be a rock bottom price, I mean, not, it shouldn't exceed it, would be $1,500 from the village to be able to make this all happen.
And you're taking donations.
But yeah, the donations will go for, the thought process was not to have the donations go towards the installation of the unit or the plaque. The donation was to be able to cover the cost for the plaque, for the people that were donating to pay back for expenses of materials that were used for it, to be able to assemble it. So that basically my brother's cost expense out of his pocket would be just nothing more than the labor and the time equity that he put into constructing the art. the materials, which, you know, don't include the implement parts, because those were basically trashed, and he picked them up to be able to reutilize them. It's just the cost of welding it together and the consumables that are used. And I do thank you for your time earlier and for right now, you too as well.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
very much.
All right, thank you.
Do we need a proposal for that? Do you
No.
want to investigate?
Item C, ordinance. An ordinance amending the Peatone Village Code relative to the permitting, regulation, and deployment of small wireless facilities. The ordinance adds a new chapter to the Village Code of Ordinances in order to regulate the permitting and deployment of small wireless facility installations consistent with the requirements of the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act, which was signed into law as Public Act 100-0585. I will turn it over to the attorney.
All right, thank you. So this has kind of been a hot button issue in the state for the last year, and it's gonna be something that you'll maybe hear more about in the next couple of years, but I wanted to, because it's new, I wanted to give you some context. If I could just talk a couple minutes about what these are, how this act came to be, why we need to implement it. So, you know, the first thing I kind of want to familiarize you with is what is a small cell when we're talking about this legislation and what it's regulating. So I passed out some pictures with some examples. And so we're all familiar with the big traditional wireless and radio towers, the cell phone towers, the real tall ones that everyone's been dealing with for 20 years. So those provide the base coverage for a wireless company. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, they all have their networks set up with those big towers. And starting in about 2012, the wireless companies started supplementing their existing network with these small cell antennas, and they're placed at a much lower location. They typically can consist of an antenna put on top of the utility pole with an equipment box partway down. And so you see some examples here. This one on the left is in Village of Hinsdale. You see the antenna at the top and the equipment, you know, about a third of the way up. The one in the middle is in City of St. Charles, and it's kind of a similar setup. The one on the right is in Schaumburg, and this one is on a village light pole. You'll see again the antenna on the top. And then I gave you a couple additional examples. I don't know exactly where these are from, but they just show some of the kind of different designs that can happen. You know, the middle one is kind of an ornamental light pole that has been modified with that antenna enclosure on the top. And then they also like to use the traffic signals for these. So you'll see one kind of a combination traffic signal and street light with the antenna on top again. So those are examples of what we're talking about. And so the reason this is all happening right now is the telecom companies are getting ready to roll out a 5G network. So if you look on your existing phone up by the bars, you'll see 4G up there. And so that's what everybody's on right now. They're finalizing technology to roll out a 5G network. And the telecom industry is really excited about this technology because in addition to the texting and streaming video and internet abilities that we have now, we're going to be able to have enough capacity to deal with all the things that are coming online in the next few years. So for an example, all the smart home functions. So you see these wireless thermostats, your Nest thermostats. You see more and more of these smart washers and dryers and smart refrigerators. I was even at someone's house recently where they had a wireless meat thermometer. So the turkey's in the oven with the meat thermometer in it, and they're monitoring their internal temperature on their phone. So there's more and more of that kind of thing happening. And they're even building this with capacity to be able to handle the driverless cars as they come online in a few years. So it's a lot of exciting technology that the residents are going to want, businesses are going to want once it starts happening in the next couple of years. And so the telecom industry has always they've always been pushing for less local regulation over where they put their stuff. And so they've primarily pushed in past years at the federal level, and they've had some success there. The way they're dealing with the 5G is they're going to do it not by building more of the big towers, but by using these small cell installations. And they are, in order to do that and be able to do it in an economical manner that doesn't cause them to have different regulations in every town they're dealing with, they've introduced similar bills to this in all 50 states, trying to get this passed so that, that they have kind of certainty as to how this is all going to happen. And the gist of the legislation is that they want to be able to put these on municipal infrastructure, things like streetlights and traffic signals, with not much oversight by the villages as to where they go, not much ability to say no, and where we don't have stuff for them to put it on, to be able to put up new poles in locations where they need them in order to facilitate this technology. Now, in a lot of cases, they're probably going to go on ComEd poles because that's kind of been their default before, and you know, they're going to utilize those to the extent they can, but there may be some occasions where they're asking to put this on our infrastructure. So they introduced this bill, and it impacted our traditional zoning authority. It says they have to be permitted uses in the right-of-way, be permitted uses in certain districts. Even in towns where they negotiated contracts with Verizon as to how these would be laid out, they said, well, those contracts are only good for a limited time, and then this act kicks in, and they put in caps on fees, caps on application fees, and how much we can charge to have this on our infrastructure. So those are all things that traditionally have been powers of the municipalities that had been untouched by the federal regulations. So municipalities were upset when this legislation was originally introduced. I won't bore you with the long fight over it, but it was defeated last spring, came back in October for veto session, and after some further negotiated changes, it made it slightly better for municipalities. I was part of the negotiations on behalf of some of the municipalities that were involved, and we did get some good concessions, some protections for historic districts, increases in the fees, some alterations to the zoning. So it got better, but not good enough that we really felt that it was a good deal for municipalities, because it started out from such a bad place that even though it got somewhat better, it still wasn't good. But they made enough concessions that a few legislators flipped, and they were able to get it passed in veto session. And so then it sat around for a long time. It didn't go to the governor until February. Everyone thought he may veto it. He ended up signing it as is on April 2nd. And so it has a substantive implementation date of August 1st. So everyone's kind of been scrambling to get everything in place since then. We've been working on these template ordinances for all the municipal clients, and then modifying them for your individual towns. And so that's what you have before you today, is this ordinance that implements the act, and kind of restates a lot of the things that are in the act, so everyone knows what's what when they come to town. And then there's additional pieces that we'll be bringing to you regarding this. There's going to be some design standards, because that's one area that we do have some continuing control over, is the ability to tell them when they come, okay, we understand you may be able to put this on our street light or put up a new pole in our right-of-way, but this is what it has to look like. And so we're going to work to develop design standards that we can give to the telecom companies when they come, so that we're getting, if left unregulated, these can look pretty bad in some cases, the wires hanging off and ugly boxes and multiple boxes. So we'll be able to utilize some control there. They do have to be, as I said, permitted uses in the right-of-way, and in certain zoning districts. In your case, it's the office district and the 2 industrial districts, because they don't have any residential components to them. They have to be permitted uses there. My understanding in talking to the telecom companies is they're not looking to put these on private property, except as a last resort. They're going to mostly be looking at the utility right-of-ways. There is a permitting process. We're working on a template application form, which I'll modify for the village, that gives them, that tells all the things that we need as a village, things that like Troy can look at, like a structural analysis from a certified engineer to review, to make sure that the pole they're asking to come on can support the new equipment, those sorts of things. There's some strict time limits in the act as to how we process these, so we have to kind of have our ducks in a row and be able to roll this out when they do come to town. There's some height limitations. They can't put up a 110-foot pole in our right-of-way. They're limited to 45 feet generally. There's a couple exceptions. We have protections in here so that they can't interfere with our public safety communications. So to the extent that we have radio receivers and telecom related to the public safety, and there's any interference problems, there's kind of strict measures as to how they have to deal with that. So that's some of the stuff that's in the act. The application fees I mentioned, it's $650 application fee to put a single installation on an existing pole. If they put multiple poles in a single application, it's $350 each. And if a new pole is involved, it's $1,000 so that we can have the engineering review and the kind of things that we need. Those are the maximum amounts allowed under the statute, and I put those into the ordinance. And then co-locations, if they do go on one of our poles, we get to have them enter into an agreement. And again, we have a template attachment agreement that we're gonna give them that governs, how who pays for the electric and what happens if the pole gets knocked over and all those sorts of things. And we do get $200 a year for each installation that they put on our infrastructure. And again, that's the maximum allowed under the act, up significantly from the $20 they originally proposed, but still not great. But it is what it is. So it's one of those things the legislature has left us with to deal with, and I think with the steps that I described, we're going to be in the best position we can be when this stuff comes along down the pike in the next year.
And town decides how many of those.
So it's hard to tell. I'm still getting a sense of that. For densely populated areas, they're looking at each provider will want these every 150 to 500 feet. In a place like Peatone, I'm curious as to whether with the existing cell towers that it may be a while until usage really ramps up that they need additional cell attachments. That's kind of the sense I'm getting, is that we may not have, I think we're gonna have them at some point, but as they start to come online with 5G to begin with, I wouldn't expect a bunch of new installations right away.
May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I know that there's maybe 8 to 10 subdivisions within Peatone that are URD, underground service.
Yep.
So you don't have any poles on there, which is kind of a cosmetic type of thing. When you go to erect a pole, it's less than 45 foot tall. In those areas, is that gonna, do they have any additional protection for that, or is that just something that would have to be implemented in there, because there's no other way to service it?
Right, so there are, like you said, a number of subdivisions in all the communities that, kind of the thing is, as new subdivisions go in, we don't want the above-ground infrastructure the way it's been in the past. But because this technology at this point is not able to be undergrounded, they do have rights to put up the poles. We have a little more control in areas where we've said no undergrounding, and again, with our design standards, we'll do our best. So are there streetlights over there at all? Or
Yeah.
so a lot of times the electric will be buried, but there's still streetlights, and so we just need to come up with a design. And in some cases, they're expressing a willingness to, okay, we'll replace that existing light pole with one that is designed in a way that the equipment box is maybe in the base, so we can't see it hanging on the pole, and the antenna looks kind of like an extension at the top, so it's not obvious. So again, through the design standards, we'll do our best to address those situations, but they do still have the right, because they want to be able to put the 5G everywhere, to go in those areas.
What about the provision about abandonment, saying that you have to wait 12 months before the abandonment provision?
Right,
kicks in?
so abandonment's kind of odd. Well, first of all, it's gonna be hard to tell to begin
Right.
with whether they're working or not, right?
Exactly.
But our
But when this
concern was.
technology is obsolete, they're
Right,
gonna walk
our
away from it,
concern
it's
was,
gonna
well,
sit
the
there.
things are gonna keep changing and the technology is gonna be obsolete at some point. So the best we can do is, they're gonna come in with a permit. We're gonna have, on there, we have their emergency contact number, and all their contacts. And they have to put tags, we're putting in there, they're putting metal tags on the equipment as to whose it is. Then if it changes hands, they have to come to us, they have to change out those tags, they have to give us the new information. So we track it the best we can. They have, each provider is gonna have a master license agreement with us and then get site-specific permits approved, as, under that. And so we'll know whose is whose and what we've approved and what we haven't. There's strict penalties that we built in for, in the cases where they put up stuff without asking us. So we just have to track it the best we can, and if we think it may be abandoned, we just send notice to the last place. And if we don't get the responses we want, we take it down. And it is what it is. Hopefully, if it looked good to begin with, it won't be too much of an eyesore while we're waiting, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the best.
And what about the maintenance of these things? Because, I mean, Comcast is terrible. Their cable's hanging all over this village.
Right.
What about these? Is there any provisions to protect us?
Right, so that wasn't really addressed in the act, not surprisingly, since they drafted it.
Right.
But we built a kind of an enforcement provision in here with a lot of things like that, saying, hey, you have to follow what we've said. So our design standards are the wires are supposed to be enclosed and the chase is going down and things like that. So if they start to look bad or have any issues, we're able to go to them and address possibly revoking that particular permit, and to the extent that there's multiple violations, looking at their overall license agreement. So, I think we're at least initially just talking about the major telecom providers who hopefully should be pretty good. Some are better than others. I know that from previous dealings. But we do the best you can with aggressive enforcement.
At least it's addressed.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
The lease payment, so if it's a ComEd pole, is it paid to ComEd or is it paid to the village?
Goes to ComEd, and ComEd rates are capped by the ICC, so ComEd only gets like $15 a year under ICC regulations. So that's one of the reasons that they may want to go on ComEd where they can, as opposed to our.
But if they go on ComEd, they don't even have to ask us, do they?
They still have to get a permit from us.
Oh,
Yes,
they do? Okay.
Yes.
And
Any
adhere-
small cell that
and
goes up.
adhere to the design standards.
Okay.
Right, so we'll have kind of design standards designed for, you can't make a ComEd pole look that good, but at least make it follow these basic requirements.
Any other questions? If not, you have the ordinance in your packets. It's ordinance number 18-05, an ordinance amending the Peatone Village Code relative to the permitting, regulation, and deployment of small wireless facilities. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by trustee Bowden, seconded by trustee Ham to adopt ordinance number 18-05.
Bowden?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Jones?
Yep. Item D, discussion of the village board's approach for searching for and hiring a village administrator. So we're, as we all know, without a village administrator currently, and I think we need to kind of figure out our path, well, or at least get an idea of a couple ideas of a path to fill that position. The last time we were in this position, we kind of ran it ourselves. We created some ads and placed them in municipal newspapers, magazines, and took the applications, sorted the applications, graded the applications, knocked it down to 10, interviewed 10, knocked it down to 3, and then made the hire. It was about a 3-month process. There is a couple different organizations out there that will help facilitate that process. I've spoken to one of them, Gene Steinmark, who I think everybody's met. He's a consultant that has helped a little bit with our trying to attract some business to town. His company offers that service. They also have a couple retired administrators in their organization that we could hire as an interim during the time. They would help kind of create the parameters for the search, do the search, narrow it down, bring us how many ever we say, and go from there. I've asked them to submit a proposal to me. I haven't received it yet. I was communicating with him a little bit last week while I was gone via text. So I think that's one way, that we can look at. I'd like to see that proposal, I guess, if it's okay with the board, and bring it back to the next meeting, and then if that's kind of out of the realm of where we want to be, then I think we probably go back to doing it ourselves.
We say out of the realm, you mean cost-wise?
Yes,
Is there a standard, industry standard?
as far as,
In my industry, it's 20% of the salary. I mean, is that,
right, and that I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if you've had any experience,
Yeah, I know some of our clients have used search firms and stuff, but it's been a while, so I don't remember what the.
so I guess that's why I want to see the proposal,
Yeah.
just to see what it calls for.
I mean, there's multiple
I can
search
find that
firms.
out, though.
There's
There
multiple
is,
search
there
firms.
is.
Yeah.
So that's one, and there's GovHR too, I think. I don't know if they do the search part of it. I know that they offer interims, but I can contact them, also, and ask them to get us a proposal along the same path.
Yeah.
That way we'll have at least two.
Yeah.
What's the name of that one?
GovHR.
If we do an interim, do we have to negotiate the price, the rate, or is that a set fee that they've got?
I think that'd be part of the proposal that they make. Yeah, it's,
So basically, those guys are headhunters.
Mhm.
yes, I would say you're correct.
Yeah, I know people at GovHR, it's a pretty good
Mhm.
organization.
I spoke with them the last time too, but then we had decided, at that time, just, I don't think we even ever got a number, from them. We just decided to push ahead on our own and do the search ourselves, but,
I think it's important so we're competitive in, our offers. They know the market more than we do.
Sure.
I'm guessing.
so if that's okay,
Yes.
we'll proceed that direction. All right, hopefully we'll have something back for the next board meeting, which is the second Monday in August. Anything else? Correspondence, communications, petitions, questions of the press? No questions from the press? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by trustee Jones, seconded by trustee Parker.
Jones?
Yep.
Parker?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Bowden?
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.